How's it going, everyone? Patrick with the Diabetes Management Group here to share 3 ways to lower blood sugars whenever they're high for people with type 2 diabetes and prediabetes. And with each tip, I'll be talking about the ones who'll have the quickest ways to lower the blood sugars and other effective ways without having to use any medications. Before we get started, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, liking this video, clicking that notification bell for updates, sharing this video, and leaving a comment your thoughts throughout this, that'd be greatly appreciated. And it helps grow and support this channel and providing more free tips for people to help manage their diabetes and hopefully reverse it and keep it reversed. So the first tip for managing and lowering those blood sugars, and before I get into sharing these tips, I wanted to give a brief explanation of how type 2 diabetes works. So it is 100% not a high blood sugar issue. Instead, it is an insulin resistance issue. What does this mean? So essentially it means that with our bodies, for people with type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, and more, the body has a difficult time in moving those blood sugars into the muscles and the organs so that it can be used off as fuel to lower the blood sugars effectively. That's due to the insulin resistance. So a good analogy that I like to use to help people understand this, and that I've learned myself, is imagine we're trying to go to a party and all the people lining up to get into that party is the blood sugars. And then the bouncer who's at the door and with the keys to open up the door, they are acting as the insulin to allow those blood sugars into the door. And then that door lock and the door, that represents the insulin sensitivity / insulin resistance of the muscles, the cells of each of the organs around in the body. So if it is more insulin sensitive, that means opening of that key door allows a lot of people into the party at the same time. Whereas if it is more insulin resistant, then that means the door has a harder time opening up, or even the key turning to even open up the door lock. And it doesn't matter how many keys is being sent through, because the insulin sensitivity, it's not that great for people with type 2 diabetes and prediabetes due to a variety of different factors. And I'll explain more of those in a different video. I'll be sharing more ways of how to increase the insulin sensitivity and effectively lowering those blood sugars whenever they get high. So because of that, it's completely normal that whenever people eat their foods, that blood sugars will go up because it needs to move from our stomach into our bloodstream. And then from that bloodstream, the goal is to try to get that to the muscles, to the brain, and the rest of the organs to be used off as fuel so that we have the energy to go about our days. And the best ways that I found in lowering my own blood sugars when I had a continuous glucose monitor and doing the blood sugar tests, as well as with my many clients who utilize these methods so much that they love those methods. It helped them out so much that they cannot stop referring their friends to work with the Diabetes Management Group or check out our content. They scream its praises. So one of the most effective ways for lowering those blood sugars effectively is pairing complex carbohydrates or things that are high in fiber and lean protein with any sources of carbs, because the carbohydrates generally, that'll cause the blood sugars to go up, and then it'll take a bit of time for it to start coming back down. Protein and fiber, those act as a way to blunt how high those blood sugars get, because it slows down the digestion process of how the blood sugars get sent to our muscles and our organs, and effectively blunts how high it gets by slowing down that process. So if we were to think about fiber and protein in that party scenario, they essentially act as the crowd controllers, where they're able to help people get organized into appropriate lines instead of overcrowding it and causing a lot of an issue for the blood sugar molecules to get into the cells, the muscles, and the organs, and more. So fiber and protein, pairing that with the meals is very effective. And of course, drinking water in between each bite in each of those meals, that'll help significantly in allowing the water to help transfer those blood sugars into the muscles and the rest of the body very effectively. And if we were to think about it this way, imagine that we have a cup of water and we're mixing a cup of sugar into it. It's going to be a sweet, sugary beverage. Now imagine if it is half a cup of water, but we're still mixing in that same cup of sugars into it, it's going to be a lot more sweeter compared to the one that has a cup of water in there. So that's essentially how dehydration works for people with type 2 diabetes or prediabetes, or even without diabetes, is if we're dehydrated, then there's a higher concentration of those sugars, which makes it the blood sugars a lot higher and makes it a lot harder for it to actually move those blood sugars around in our body. So with that being said, making sure that whenever someone is taking the bites of their food, to drink water in between those bites to help with the blood sugar management. And additionally pairing the protein and the fiber with the carbohydrates, that'll help significantly in blunting how high those blood sugars get. So tip number 2 is if those blood sugars are high because of stress due to stress hormones, then one of the best ways to do that is to listening to meditation videos and doing some deep breathing activities. Dr. Andrew Huberman talks about a really good strategy called the physiological sigh, where we can do it together. We just take a deep breath in through the nose, deep breath in again, and then slowly bring it all out. And we'll do that for 3 to 4 rounds, 5 or more, in case someone needs extra time with it to really lower the stress hormones down, then they could do that. So just breathing in again, and breathe out slowly. And doing that repeatedly, that is actually stimulating our nervous system called the parasympathetic nervous system, where it helps with relaxing and calming our body down. So that is able to improve our insulin sensitivity and allowing those blood sugars to effectively get to the muscles and organs and the rest of our body even more effectively. And a good way to think about it for the party example is, imagine if the crowd is nervous, anxious, stressed out, and very giddy, so they act a lot more erratically, and it's harder for them to actually get through the doors safely and appropriately. Whereas instead, if they're more calm, they're waiting their turn, and they're organized and calm and collected, then the line tends to move a lot quicker through the doors to make it a lot more easier in order to manage those blood sugars effectively. And then for the last tip in lowering those blood sugars, it's to activate the muscles directly. So by activating those muscles, imagine that there's a huge maintenance crew that comes in and opens up a lot more doors and allows more people into the party a lot more easily in case if that one door is not working as well due to it being rusty from the insulin resistance. So by being able to exercise and going on a 15 to 20 minute walk or doing any physical activity for 15 to 20 minutes like vacuuming, washing the dishes, just being active in some way, shape, or form, that helps significantly in managing those blood sugars a lot more effectively and getting it into the muscles to be used up as energy to help stabilize our joints, improving our insulin sensitivity, and beyond. And then other things as well is there are different forms of exercises that can be beneficial with it too. So aerobic exercise, like going on a brisk walk afterwards, that helps significantly in moving those blood sugars into the muscles by activating them. And then another thing that's very helpful is participating in resistance training. So lifting weights and being able to do either squats or sit-to stands or doing bicep curls or something with the weights by trying to go to the gym, or doing it at home where someone has a grocery bag and they load it up with cans and do some resistance activities with. That helps with growing those muscles so it becomes more leaner and reducing the fat that is within the muscles and contributing to the insulin resistance. By doing the strength training, that helps significantly in increasing the insulin sensitivity. And there's some studies that shows that by participating in the strength training or even doing high intensity interval training, that can significantly improve insulin sensitivity for the next 48 to even 72 hours, which is insane. And the thing about it is with our muscles, they have this thing called glycogen stores. So that is basically stored sugar within the muscles. And whenever those are used up, it wants to replenish it quickly. So if the glycogen stores are depleted, that means the muscles have used up its stored fuels. It wants to reload it quickly. And the best way for it to get it is to get it from the blood. So the blood sugars will have to go down in order to refuel those muscles with its glycogen stores or the sugar stores in order for it to properly improve its ability to move, stabilize our body, move our bodies around, and having a great time with it. So those are some simple strategies to help lowering those blood sugars effectively. And we'll recap it right now, where having more fiber and more lean protein, that's significantly helpful, and especially pairing it with the meals, that's very helpful in blunting how high the blood sugars get. And then remember to drink water between each bite. That helps a lot too for staying hydrated and making sure that it's not too concentrated in water. And then of course for the second tip is practicing some meditation activities or some deep breathing activities or doing the physiological sigh in different rounds of it. That helps with activating the parasympathetic nervous system to help relax our body, to decrease the amount of stress hormones and increasing the insulin sensitivity. And then of course for the last one, a quick and simple tip is to do a form of physical activity 15 to 20 minutes after eating a meal in order for those blood sugars to get down. And of course doing resistance training. And if someone has never participated in resistance training before, then trying to do at least it one time for 1 week and gradually building up. Start small and gradually building up will help in making sure that it is maintained, it's functional, and it helps someone being able to manage their blood sugars appropriately. Now, one of the things that I will say to people, especially with my case when I struggle with prediabetes, is if I decide to let the disease win, it can mean that I could gather a lot of different complications that are down the road. So for me, I just looked at the risk and benefits. If I go to the gym, do I have that fear of judgment from other people, unsure of how I look like, and those factors versus the consequences of having my prediabetes become worse and developing into type 2 diabetes and facing complications with diabetic neuropathy, blindness, stroke, and heart attacks. I just weighed the consequences. I'd rather live by going to the gym and overcoming the negativity mindset that I have with it, instead of the other future that I saw with maintaining the routes of developing type 2 diabetes and receiving the complications from it. So I chose my battle of learning how to become proficient in going to the gym to getting to the point where I start enjoying in going to the gym a lot more too. And for myself and with other people, whenever I chat with them, we always find the people who are just starting out the most inspiring in there and keeping on maintaining their progress. And we always find it inspirational for those who are struggling with their weight or struggling with their blood sugars, and them actually making those changes and doing the thing that's going to help them in the long run. Everybody respects that. Everyone is inspired by that. And we always want to keep urging us to keep on going with that. So with that being said, thank you all so much for tuning in to this video. Again, if you wouldn't mind liking this video, commenting your thoughts of what your thoughts are for these tips, or what other tips you'd recommend that we get into or talk about for a different video, subscribing if you haven't already, clicking that notification bell for updates for our future videos, and sharing this with someone in need, be greatly appreciated. All right, see y'all next time.